All right, we're going to take you back to Emerentia with SABC News anchor Unathi Bajashe, who's currently, of course, on the ground and as we shine the spotlight on the current water woes. Unathi, a very good afternoon to you once again. Let's try one more time.
Well, let's try that again, Alicia. Thank you so much. Well, a very good afternoon to you and, of course, to our viewers. We are still here in Emerentia, that's north of Johannesburg. As you know, of course, SABC News is covering the water crisis in the country. A number of our journalists have been crisscrossing the country, just looking at the hardest hit areas, particularly those that have been without water for days, some even 20 days at best. We are now in Emerentia. We're speaking to a number of people, and they are saying that Johannesburg is not approaching a crisis. In fact, it is in a crisis. And earlier on, the Rand Water issued a statement. I want to just read very briefly in terms of what it says, which could be a blow in terms of saying that high water consumption is affecting water supply in parts of Gauteng, some things that many residents know and feel. It says it's engaging with high water consumption municipalities, and it will be reducing water supply to these areas that it has identified to restore water supply in those affected areas to stabilize the entire bulk water supply system. Well, we are joined by residents, business people alike, just to speak about their experiences given these water crises. I am now joined by Sumaya Motela, and she is a businesswoman in this area. Sumaya, very good afternoon to you. I mean, you've been talking to us pretty much about what you're experiencing on a day-to-day basis. What does that look like for you?
With my business, I've got 2 in the area. It means bringing in at least about 50 times 20 liters of water per day for them to function. I mean, food businesses cannot survive without water. It's also extremely hot. We have eating restaurants. Your customers can't use the bathroom because obviously nothing is functional. We've got to make sure from our point that we keep the hygiene levels at 100%, otherwise customers going to get sick. The backlash comes back to you, so it's extremely difficult.
One of the things that you've been telling us is, in fact, that you have not seen a Johannesburg Water, or in fact any government, water supply truck, that residents here and business people here have been providing that water for yourselves.
So yes, we've not seen a truck. The last time we saw a truck was last year, sometime for a fraction of a half an hour. Myself personally, I assist with the water tankers. We bring them in. It's a private water tanker that we bring in. But yes, the water is free in that water tanker, but we still need to assist with diesel, with food for the staff that are coming out, the coordination with all of that. It takes pretty much a lot of your day to do that.
Sumaya, thank you so much. Of course, earlier on, we showed you those visuals of that water tanker. And in fact, it is one that Sumaya also brought in. I'm now going to bring in a resident, Vaughan Kelly, just to give us his reflections. Vaughan, a very good afternoon to you. I mean, you're no stranger to water cuts in the area. In fact, last year, residents also protested. How has it been?
Well, Emerentia has been suffering with water outages for close to 4 years now. We've actually had nightly water shedding from 7, 8 o'clock at night until, if you're lucky, 6, 7 o'clock the next morning, often not being restored the next day. So functionally, most residents have actually had to learn to live without any form of consistent supply from Joburg Water. So we've been pretty much going through this for the entire time, and these multi-day outages now, where we don't get the water restored, is unfortunately just not an uncommon thing.
Yep.
So residents are having to suffer along with just water bottles all over the house and trying to keep the house clean and just the basics done with very little water.
You're one of the residents that has been very vocal in the area, speaking to your ward councillor, trying to speak to Johannesburg Water as well as Rand Water in terms of having them just to be more, to communicate better, more transparent. We know, of course, that this area is supplied by a very few reservoirs, but just give us a sense in terms of what are officials telling you?
So firstly, the information from Joburg Water has been either very, very poor and inconsistent, but often very contradictory. So they've known about this crack in this Hursthill 2 reservoir, which feeds Emerentia and about 20,000 other residents of Johannesburg for over 4 years. And they've been promising to repair and refurbish and construct a new and upgraded reservoir, and it's only now starting. and they can't even give us a completion date. They told us April. Now, yesterday, they told us no, it'll be end of September. So they can't even give you consistent information. We've engaged with them on so many different platforms, tried to speak to them. We've had calls organised. We've had peaceful protests. We just can't get them to actually show the residents and the customers that are the residents of Johannesburg any form of attention. I mean, it's quite frankly, they treat us with disdain.
Yeah. Very quickly, before I let you go, of course, some of the activists, including Water Can, said that what this is in Johannesburg particularly, and areas in Tshwane too, it is akin to day zero conditions, and something that, of course, Johannesburg Water has taken issue with. What do you have to say to that?
Pretty much. I mean, we've experienced this for the last 4 years with the nightly water cuts, and now with multiple days. I mean, this is day 6 for us of zero water, not even over, during the day, so zero water. So we've had to be making alternative plans. There's a water tanker right behind you that is supplied by private residents. Joburg Water is nowhere to be seen with providing anything of the sort, no water tankers around. So residents having to make their own, guys drilling their own boreholes, supplying them. The residents are getting together. It's great for community unity, but quite frankly, it's residents that are paying the city of Joburg to do the job, and they're quite frankly not doing it at all. They're just neglecting completely.
Vaughn, thank you so much for your words. And of course, that is quite a pity when some residents can afford to make some alternatives, but others can't. In fact, I want to just draw your attention and Alicia, our viewers' attention to what earlier on the Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina said on the channel, confirming that South Africa is indeed facing a national infrastructure maintenance crisis. Let's listen to what she had to say.
The water value system is very clear who does what at what point. One, we have enough water in terms of bulk supply water, but people don't have water. And that all I always say, it sounds like a contradiction that there is water, but there is no water. And what you said earlier on, that the ailing infrastructure is the cause, the lack of maintenance, the few reservoirs, the lack of storage, of water storage, has impacted very negatively across the country. We have spoken to all municipalities and we have assured them of a bulk water supply. And nobody is complaining about bulk water supply. But what is at stake here is water reticulation as well as provision. And communities don't want to hear that. They want to see water coming out of their taps. And I fully agree with you. And the Professor Du Plessis was spot on. She understands very well what are the challenges of water. And on the side of Department of Water and Sanitation, we are doing everything in our power to ensure that we build enough water resource, and we've done that. But the challenge is at a local level where the water is supposed to be delivered to our people.
All right, that was the Water and Sanitation Minister Phemi Majodina. Let's now engage with the ward councillor right here in this particular ward. And I'm joined now by Nicole Janka. Nicole, a very good afternoon to you. So, of course, the residents in your ward are devastated. They're complaining about an issue. It may be day 6 of completely no water, but they're saying that this issue has been ongoing for the past 4 years.
Yeah, it's been hectic. So there's been a major crack in the Herschel system. I think Herschel's made quite a lot of news, so people are aware of it. And eventually we got the system to be repaired. But now Joburg Water had to replace a pump, not in Herschel but in Crosby, and they should have only switched off that section. And due to the repairs happening in our reservoir, they now switched off the whole commander system, and now they can't get it up and running again.
So what does that, point to? Also the fact that there is no clear communication from those on the ground. What do you have to say to some of the engagements, I would imagine, that you would have had with them?
So it's been a bit of a stressful situation because they're not being clear and honest with the communications. You're getting a notice saying that Herschel 1 and 2 is being augmented from Northcliffe, but we all know it can't augment Herschel 2. So it's as if Johannesburg Water's statements, they don't even know what they're talking about. Residents are now stepping in, telling them, listen, you're making mistakes. So the last communication I got just about 30 minutes ago is they've done pressure tests and they can't find the problem.
I would imagine that most of the residents come to you for help, but what are you telling them and how are you dealing with this problem?
So luckily I've got an amazing community. I mean, you've met my community. We have private tankers. My community has actually brought together a list of 3 boreholes per block where you can go 2 houses down the road for water. So we've got an action plan. We've made a plan. But when you get to day 6 of no water, you don't want to live out of a bucket anymore. You don't. So yes, but the community's been amazing.
All right, Nicole, thank you so much for that. Of course, that is Ward Councillor Nicole Yonka. I'm now going to bring in an executive from WaterCan, Dr. Ferial Adam. She is an executive manager at WaterCan. Doctor, thank you so much for your time and, of course, for joining us. I know that you are going to be crisscrossing some of the communities with us today, but I mean, it's no laughing matter at this point. Community members have spoken across the country. We've been to areas like Hammanskraal as an example. But I know that you've also spent some time in Emmarentia understanding some of their concerns, but also surrounding areas as well. Just give us a sense of how dire the situation is.
So I think that the issue, as you can see, is completely dire. It's not a localized issue. And that is something that we need to get our heads around, is that this needs to be dealt with as a national crisis. So if we think about the fact that in Melville and Maldene, there are people who have not had water for about 21 days. The Constitution says you shouldn't have water for for about 7 days in a year. So it's a violation of people's human rights. So even if you take Emmarentia, the entire commando system, and you take some of the other parts, we've got Joburg East with Kensington, the Alexander Park Reservoir, you had Midrand. This is no longer becoming isolated issues, and we can't keep behaving as whack-a-mole. Yeah. We need to deal with the systems as a whole, and that's not happening.
And dealing with the system, I mean, earlier on the show, on the channel rather, we had the Minister of Water and Sanitation saying that, South Africa is, in fact, confirming that South Africa is facing a national infrastructure maintenance problem and crisis, something that a lot of, people like yourselves, activists, have been complaining about. What do you think that points to?
So for me, I think that that's an important acknowledgement by the Minister, because we've just issued a statement to ask and to call on national government to call on a national state of disaster. So they have done that on Neisner and, talking about day 0. We are saying that this is an infrastructural day 0, and municipalities across the country are not managing. So we need to acknowledge that this is a national crisis. It's only when they do that will we be able to get the focus we need and the funds we need and the skills we need to fix the issues.
All right, Dr. Adam, thank you so much for speaking to us. And of course, that is WaterCan's Executive Manager, Dr. Ferial Adam. We're going to continue, of course, to speak to a number of residents and just get a sense of what is going on the ground. And Alicia, I know that you are going to be also speaking to some of the officials that we have been mentioning here, particularly Johannesburg Water, just to get a sense from them in terms of even the statement from Rand Water, in as far as which municipalities will now be affected, given the fact that if you look at just some of the coverage today, many municipalities are affected. So which municipalities will they continue to constrain that water supply to? I would imagine many questions and very few answers at this point. Back to you.